Hey, everybody, welcome back to this. I'm your host, Shauna Griffiths, and today's episode of Real Talk, Real Leaders features an absolutely amazing woman who I've had the joy of knowing for, I think, about 5-ish years now. So I think I told all of you that I am an advisor and have been for a startup prediction gaming app called Game On. And so the founder said to me when he was talking with Sabrina Carrozza is our guest today. He said, Shauna, you have got to meet this woman, because he was interviewing her to work with him. And the minute we got on the phone, Sabrina, I was like, oh my God, she gets it. She gets it. So I've been a fan since our first conversation. So it is an absolute honor and joy to welcome you to the podcast today.
Shauna, thank you so much for having me. I felt the same exact connection with Matt and yourself as you're describing here. It was just like, wow, this woman is so full of knowledge and energy and just full of life, which is the key, I think, for client service is, make sure that your clients know that you understand their business, but also that you're passionate about it. And you really, you derive a lot of energy and I think confidence from the competence that you have. And so I always loved how competent and confident you are. And so I'm really grateful to know someone like you. It's, there aren't that many women in our industry. As you know, sports, tech, gaming is very male dominated. So it's great to just have this vibe with another really high profile, amazing woman. So thank you. And we always thank Matt for bringing us together.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Matt Bailey on that one for sure. So Sabrina, let's talk about your own evolution that has gotten you to the seat that you have now, which is actually not just one, but a few. So you can correct me as I go here. So you're the founder and CEO of Sabrina LCP Communications, your own agency.
Yes, and you didn't have to cheat on that one because I have it right here.
You're a strategic advisor, and you're also an adjunct professor at the acclaimed NYU, and you have a role at Harvard University. So not bad, sister. So tell us, how'd you get there?
And mom and wife, but we can
we'll get to that later. And mom and wife.
So I mean, honestly, I've been really, really lucky in my entire career trajectory. For 10 years when I first got into PR, I worked in tech PR, and somehow I wiggled my way from like this tiny B2B PR agency that worked with clients that no one had ever heard of to working with Amazon and Facebook, Google, YouTube. I worked out of Google's New York office for 2 years and helped build their entire PR team. I worked with Intuit, one of the biggest brands across so many different categories. And it's been the same in sports. Like I started really small. I started working with a lot of startups that just started to grow into these huge companies. There was one company in particular and a few executives there who have really set the course of my entire career as a PR professional and starting my own business. Within months of opening up my door, I started to work with a company called Perform Group. They're based in the UK. And at that time, they were really just dipping their toe in the water in the United States. They had like an advertising technology product that I helped do PR in because I did like tech PR and ads PR for Google. So, and then just over the years, they were my client for 8 years. And the first 8 years of my business, they just kept acquiring brands. Opta, which is sports data, Goal.com, a media site focused on soccer coverage, sporting news, US American publication. And every time they would acquire this brand, they would give it to me to manage the PR in the United States. And over the course of these 8 years, not only did my work with them expand to include so many different lines of business, but also they introduced me to people, one of which was a soccer club, FC Bayern Munich. And Bayern Munich was the first soccer club I ever worked with, and it really ignited my passion in working in soccer. Mm-hmm. And then my work with FC Barcelona came right after that. I worked with Bayern Munich for 3 years, and I transitioned that experience into a role with FC Barcelona, really almost as an internal employee working out of their New York office, helping them to build a presence and a brand in the United States. And it's so funny to work with a global brand in that capacity because worldwide, FC Barcelona is one of, if not the biggest brand in the world, sports brand. And yet in the United States, they're almost like a startup because there's not a great deal of recognition, although it has grown significantly, even in the years that I've been working with them since 2016. So anyway, that role with FC Barcelona has opened me up to opportunities to teach at NYU and to collaborate with Harvard University. It just seems like I'm very, very lucky because every time I meet high profile people in really important places, they just love me and they want to add me to the things that they're doing. And I just am so grateful to all the people who have come into my life and have had a positive impact. And that's how I secured all of these roles, is just you meet people in your day-to-day work and they just, they remember you and they recommend you just like you do all the time as well. And it's networking is key. But when you do great work, you really don't have to spend time networking necessarily. You're communicating with people, you're staying engaged with people, but you don't have to network. Your work is your networking, and people, recommend you based on that. So
that's awesome. And I'm going to say it back for the listener. She said, your work is your networking. And that is such a profound statement. And I think that, you say it so naturally because it comes so naturally to you. And I think that part of that is, the impact that you look to make. You and I have talked about that a lot. And because we both share that vision of impacting with every touch point. And that also means providing, like maximizing the value that you're providing all the time. It doesn't have to mean just on a big client call or a pitch. It's like every time you pick up the phone. Right.
Right. That's right. And one of the things I'm most proud of is the long-term relationships that I have with so many different people and brands in the industry. I mean, to keep clients for 8 years, 10 years, I've only had my business for 10 years. It's really incredible. And almost all of our clients double down, meaning they see the value in what we're doing and they reinvest, they expand, they extend budgets, they expand budgets so that we can do more for them. And that happens, as you say, just through the value, the impact, the work that you do, the interest that you show, the passion that you have for their business. And that's very hard to come by. So, you stand out in a crowd as well for those same reasons. It's, you see it and you want to be a part of it. You want it around you because it's positive energy.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about your clients. So I'm glad you hit on that. And it's pretty awesome that you're now at the stage where you actually get to be pretty selective about the clients you choose. And so, that is a bit of a badge of honor, I would say. And, it's you, and I love the way you shared your whole evolution because it doesn't happen overnight, like entrepreneurialism, it isn't easy. When you're breaking in, you're learning, and you're also on like that razor's edge side of the business that you're on. So thank you so much for sharing all that.
Of course.
I think it sounds like patience along the way, as well as that passion and fire. It's been a real kind of mix of those elements.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been at this for 20 years, 20 plus years. So I've been working since I'm 16 years old. I've had a full-time job since I'm 16 years old. And it was all because I wanted to. I mean, my parents would say, why are you doing that? And it was a telemarketing job. And I looped my friends in, like, none of them wanted to work, but like they would work for a month because I was like, come and do this with me. And we would go and, I've been selling things even since I'm, probably 10 years old, but I just always have a passion for work and I have to stay busy. But I've been at this for many, many, many years. And, I didn't start my business until I had 10, 15 years under me working with some really big brands, as well as startup brands across multiple categories. Like, you really have to have a breadth of experience if you're opening up a business, because you just never know what business your client will be in tomorrow, basically, especially in the world that we live in. There's acquisitions, there are, liquidity events, there are recommendations that come in. As I say, I was working in tech PR for 10 years. And then all of a sudden, one recommendation totally shifted my entire business almost to be focused on sports. I mean, I still have tech clients and clients in other industries, but a big part of my business now is sports. And I had never worked in sports before. So I think just being ready, and you have to give yourself the time that you need to experience all of these different aspects of being a consultant, really, which is what I was for many years. Because as a consultant, your client has to rely on you for really good advice, and you can't give them good advice if you haven't been through it, through it multiple times with multiple different types of personalities and different brands, different industries. Like, you really have to have a great, breadth of knowledge and experience in order to pull from that, to train a team, to give it to your clients. So I know everyone, we live in a world of like instant gratification, and people want to graduate college and like start their own business and be a CEO. And I think that's wonderful in some respects, but also just be careful of that, because your reputation is so important. Being in PR, I understand the value of your name and your reputation in the industry. So it's better to wait and gain the experience and then really push forward, and you'll be in a great position to just, leapfrog over others maybe who have taken a slower approach or just aren't as ambitious, right? Because I think ambition it really decides how far someone's going to go and how far they'll push, in their own personal lives and in their professional lives for the best of, to make themselves happy. And for me, my ambition just has no end. I mean, as soon as I accomplish something, I'm on to the next 10 things. And it's really like, it's an internal thing I have.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a fire you've got it's contagious.
Really
I'll tell you, it's awesome. So another thing that stuck out to me as you were talking about it is, I actually talk about what you were just saying as, the acquiring the experience over the years. I talk about it as like tools in your toolbox. It's like, I want to be the Mary Poppins where I'm like pulling stuff out.
Absolutely.
Like, and I think that does take time. And there's moments when I'm like, oh gosh, I only learned that recently at this stage of my career. And so one of the things that I'm picked up when you were talking is, you have spent so many years, you've never stopped filling the tools in your toolbox, and you continue to. And I think that's really important, that we're
learning mindset.
Yeah, it's a learning mindset. And that's a bit of my obsession about evolving, is that we're constantly on a pursuit of evolution. And that means that we're continually adding to our bag of tools. We're adding, our network is expanding and that kind of thing. Because it just, again, it goes full circle back to the value that you can provide when you bring more to the table.
That's right. And every touch point is an opportunity to share and also to learn. So I don't care what role someone is in an organization. Whenever someone reaches out to me, I give them the respect and the courtesy they deserve with a proper response. And I don't feel any sort of hierarchy in the way that I do business. Is, I treat everyone the same, and I expect respect, and I give respect to everyone on the team, from the intern to the CEO. It's all the same to me. And I think that also is something that is worth sharing with people, because I see too often today that there's almost, a tiered approach to how people communicate with others or how people address others. And that's going to come back and bite people in the ass, because the intern today is going to be a CEO in 5 years from now. You never know where they're going to be. And it's really important to just treat everybody with respect and kindness. So
yeah, absolutely.
On your pursuit of ambition.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that whole mindset of continuing to evolve, let's talk about the discipline of PR, of communications, how much that has evolved and how that translates to what your services are today, because I would love for you to talk about your approach to your services, because I applaud the way that you approach the business.
Thank you so much, Shauna. I look at PR, and I call myself a public relations consultant, really, because it's every touch point with the outside world is something that your PR person or your PR team should be concerned with. All of your communication, every single touch point out there. So it's obviously it's communicating news. It's making sure that all of your stakeholders and potential partners and potential collaborators know about what's happening in the organization. But it's also as simple as sharing insights and tips and feedback, blogs, all types of content that you can then slice and dice and put on social media, right? So it's engaging with media outlets to drive coverage, to drive a positive brand image of your client and the executives in the organization, to build up their thought leadership as experts in their field. But it's also, how can you leverage all of the various own channels and media channels to create value for the brand, to build a brand, whether it's a global brand, as I had mentioned, FC Barcelona is a client of mine. In the United States, they're almost as a startup here, because there isn't a great deal of brand recognition outside of maybe the kids who play FIFA and people who work in sports. But like mainstream America, soccer is still number 4 or number 5. So it's all about building a positive brand image and then leveraging every single channel to create a connection with people. And that is the other key aspect of it. It's not just a one-way communication anymore, which that's what public relations used to be. It was all about pushing information out and just leaving it there and letting it, take its own shape. But today's time, it's really important to have a two-way conversation with everyone who you're engaging with. So as you notice, most media companies, they have podcasts now, they have video series. Social media is a two-way engagement. Blogs often have commentary at the bottom of it. So it's making sure that you're communicating in a way that's most relevant for a particular audience. And the other way that it's changed, aside from that two-way communication, is also that there's so many different platforms that you need to be on, and so many different ways in which you need to communicate in order to be relevant on that particular platform. There could be one particular news announcement or one particular message that you want to share, but the way that you share that on your blog versus in a press release versus on LinkedIn versus on Twitter versus on Instagram versus on Viber, all of those different platforms represent unique opportunities, and there are very specific fans or very specific consumers or stakeholders or potential partners on all of these platforms. So you have to have someone on your team who understands who is on these platforms, which segment of your audience are on these platforms, and then how best to engage with them. Is it a visual? Is it audio? Is it, there are so many different ways that you can approach it. And you need someone who's really experienced in working across all of these different platforms. And as a PR person, you have to today jump onto everything. Like as soon as Clubhouse came out, I got an invitation and I started, using it. And I actually had to change my phone because I was on a Samsung and they didn't have an Android. So I had to get on an Apple. I bought an Apple phone just to get on Clubhouse because my clients potentially need to be on there. Yeah. I need to experience it firsthand so that I can give them the advice they need on how to engage their audience on that platform. So it's so fragmented, and it's really important to understand who's where and how to best engage with them with what particular content. So it's really very strategic today, more so than just pushing content out there.
Yeah, to your point, I think it really is, as you talked about it very much is this integrated approach to the services that you couple. Mm-hmm. And when you just talked about like breaking through, it's interesting, actually you didn't say breaking through, but that's what my mind said, when it's like, you're breaking through the noise, right?
And it's like conversation. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be out on every single one of them full force. It's really, that strategic advisor in like the seat that you have in your staff is to help people navigate and figure out, instead of trying to compete with the noise, it's find the strategic placement that it really allows you to stand apart.
And the brand that you're working with is really, you will dictate that, whether it's a B2C brand or a B2B brand, who their customers are, who their partners are, that will help you decide which platforms are best for them and how to communicate on those platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about something else here, which I don't think that many people talk about, or maybe they do, but I just don't hear it very much. But in the movement of equity in careers, I'm really curious about the dynamic that goes on that I've read in like the PR communications field, where something like 60 to 80% are female. Yes. And I think it's super interesting in the space that you're thriving in, which is sports and entertainment, which is traditionally male dominated. So it's just, it's just such an interesting sort of, I don't know, almost like conundrum or like sort of mix of unexpecteds, and so I'm curious, like, do you actually see that? Is it really that female dominated? Are you thinking it's starting to change at all? Or like, I don't know, is there anything you can share with us about that?
PR is absolutely female dominated, and I'm not sure why or how that happens. It's just like certain careers like nursing, teachers, PR, it just is very female. What's interesting about that, and I am starting to change it. So I'm a team of 5 and I have 2 men on that team. So it's very unusual to see that in such a small team, to have 2 men, with high profile careers, both on the team. So I'm lucky to have them.
Yeah.
What's really interesting, and this is what I share with students more often than just in my career as a communications professional, is that you have to be really careful as a young woman, as a pretty young woman, when you're when you're working in male dominated industries. It's very easy to I think us women get hit on a lot. I mean, I'm just going to speak plainly, right? Like us women get hit on a lot in male dominated industries. It's never bothered me. It's for 20 years, even working in tech, which is very male dominated. You have these young entrepreneurs who are multimillionaires, they get funding and their head gets really big. Many of them are Ivy League graduates. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's the reality. And so for years, I've always known, or I've always had to deal with, men hitting on me, and it doesn't affect me, right? I'm of an older generation where I just brush it off my shoulders. I take it as a compliment and I move on. But I think for younger women, and this is for the men in the room or the men who are listening, the older men, it's really important to be super careful about how you communicate with young women, whether they're on your PR team, communications team, marketing, whatever, because the expectation today of young women is very, very different. And they, what we've heard loud and clear is they want there to be a very thick and clear line of like that you cannot cross in terms of the way that you communicate with a woman. Like, don't call her sweetheart, don't comment on her looks, don't say anything, that just keep it professional. Act as if you're speaking to a man, even though you're not speaking to a man. So I think that dynamic has been really interesting to watch, and the progression of that dynamic over the last 20 years, because us women, when I was first starting out in my career, we would just, laugh about it, that, but now it's not something to laugh at because people can really get in a lot of trouble for it. So I think the caution sign should be up really bright and shining for men in the industry. Like, just, be careful with how you're communicating with women and make sure you're keeping it super professional. And then for women, young women, or, mid-level women in the industry, since there are a lot of us women together working on communications and PR and marketing, I think it's really important that when we're interacting with the men in the industry to just, again, present a more professional vibe and try not to be, flirty, and really try to put that line up for yourself as well, so that people know how to treat you based on the way that you carry yourself. So I think that's important.
It's an interesting thing. Something that I often talk about is we often teach someone how they can treat us. And whether that's because we, as you said, and sometimes it's an accident. You're like, how do I deal with this? So you kind of laugh or you shrug it off. But like that actually just can teach someone that you're okay with it. So those are really great points. So thank you. Thank you so much for that. Always looking out, which brings me to another part of your life. In the closing minutes that we have here, I would love to talk about, we mentioned it earlier, in addition to all the career roles you have, you're also a wife and a mother. So my question is not about balancing, because I don't think any of us really balance, right? It's the juggling, but it's also, I feel like it's inventing time in a day. And so I'm curious, anything that you can share about how do you manage to juggle it and invent time in your day, week, so you can live in an ecosystem with all of it?
Yeah. I mean, there are several things that I can share. And the first is you need a spouse or a significant other who has your back. When you're starting a family as a woman, you really have to think about these things. Oftentimes when we're young, and, especially my generation, we all got married in our 20s. Nowadays, women are getting married 30s, or many are choosing not to get married. But your partner in life, who you choose to have a family with, they will be the number one factor in your success in life. If they support you, if they have your back, if they want you to succeed and they want you to do well in the career that you chose because you're passionate about it, they will help you figure it out, right? My husband is downstairs right now.
Yeah.
It's election day. My son is home from school. My husband is also home. He's home taking care of Alex, our son, while I'm up here, working and doing what I need to do. So, and that's just a regular occurrence. He's always there. He always has my back. He helps me figure it out. And this is the problem. The Mom Project is one of my clients. I'm really passionate about their mission. I love the founders. And what we found in interviewing thousands of women, and it's been covered widely across many different media outlets, is that women still bear the burden of the childcare at home and taking care of the housework. Like 90% or around that figure, 70 to 90% of all household chores and duties are burdens on the women. And that's your own, as you said earlier, Shauna, you have to dictate how people are going to treat you. And you need to make sure that you are an equal partner in all of your relationships, including the most important one, which is with your significant other and raising a family. So that's number one. Number two is I find ways to add time in the day, as you say, because I'm an early bird. So at 6 a.m., I'm my client, FC Barcelona, and all my other clients who are up early, like the CEO of Drive by DraftKings, Meredith McBaron, she's up at the crack of dawn as well. So I'm working while people are probably just turning over in their bed, like 6 a.m. I'm sending emails, I'm responding to WhatsApp messages, so there's hours extra in the day. And then I do also pick my son up from school every day, and I try to spend an hour with him when he gets home every single day from 3 to 4 o'clock at least. and then I have dinner with my family. So I make the time for my family to make sure that I'm involved in those most important moments. And then at the end of the day, once Alice goes to sleep, I pop open my laptop again. And, while my husband's watching TV, I work because it's what I enjoy to do. I read, I respond to things. It's really helpful for me because my day is packed to have those morning hours and the end of the day hours to really wrap things up and, write creatively and, do all the extra things that I would like to do in a day, but just can't fit them in that window.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate that you are part of the early bird club. And this is why I was able to call you at 7 o'clock the other day and talk about potential clients. So no, thank you so much. I think those are all such great, just tips that you've passed along, and I appreciate it. So the last thing, because you can be selective with your clients and you've talked a lot about how you operate. So I'm going to ask, for those listening to this, for people who want to be on your radar as a client, what should they know? What should they think about?
Disruption. I mean, I'm in the business of communications, public relations. I need new and interesting and compelling things happening in order for me to bring that news to all of the top media in my network. I tell my clients this from the beginning. My number one client are all the press people and conference organizers and award organizers. I have to service them. So I look to bring on clients that help me service them. So they have to be doing something big and something interesting. Otherwise, it's just not really worth the time and the resource, to invest in it. And I'm at that stage now, not to sound, rude, but I really am at a stage where I can pick and choose because I don't want to just grow for the sake of growth. I want to keep my team small and strategic, and we will grow at the right moments with the right clients. So I just am focused on working with disruptors, like whoever's doing something really big and interesting that's going to change the industry or the way that people do things. Those are the types of companies I'm looking to work with because I have all of the right media contacts and conference organizers to help bring attention to something really big and strategic. And that's really the bar that I set for my team.
Oh, that's incredible. So you heard it here, folks. You want in, be a disruptor. Sabrina, I am so grateful to know you, to walk the path with you, and to have had you on today. So I'm excited for this to share this with everybody. And thank you so much. You have a good day inventing time.
Thank you, Shauna. You too. You're just an incredible woman and career woman. You're an example to all of us in the industry of what's possible when you really dedicate yourself to your work. So congratulations to you as well. I'm so, proud and honored to have you in my network. And I love everything that you're doing. So congratulations to you too. And thank you for having me.